Hello, fans and athletes of bodybuilding. My name is Tarek El-Guindi with the Mr. Olympia. Today, we are going to talk about the Arnold Classic Ohio. And I'm here with my good friend. He's the master of ceremony for the Mr. Olympia for the Arnold Classic 2000 Mr. USA. Is the voice of bodybuilding, Bob Chick. How are you, Bob?
What's up, Tarek? I am back. Last week chatted, I was all the way across the pond in Italy, and I was at 2 a.m., so hopefully everything came out right. I know we had a little spotty issues with some connections, but we got some good big breaking news, my brother.
Yes, and when I saw the list, the first thing that everybody called me about was, Tarek, is Hadi really doing the Arnold? Because he's never done it. He's a Mr. Olympia. He's runner-up at the Mr. Olympia, and now he's going to the Arnold Classic. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's great. I think these guys should break out more, even if you're a former Olympia champ. I mean, we've seen Brandon Curry compete there many times. The interesting thing about this list, Tarek, is it's as much about who isn't there than who is there, and we'll get into that in just a few moments as we go down the list. But as I've said for many, many years now, every show creates opportunity for somebody to shine bright. Maybe this is one of those shows.
Now, the question is, last year, there was Nick Walker did the show, Simpson Dauda did the show, and a lot of people were critical of Derek Lunsford for not doing the show. And Derek Lunsford said, guys, my goal is to win the Mr. Olympia. And I think it's going to be a great show, but I'm not participating. And he went on to win the Mr. Olympia. Now, looking back, we have to say, it worked for him. Do you think Hadi doing the Arnold takes him a little bit away from winning the Olympia, or no?
I don't think it has any bearing. I mean, these guys are professionals. Have always believed as a professional bodybuilder, you should be able to get your ass in shape more than just once every 365 days. So I don't have any issue with a top Olympian doing this. Interestingly, we only have one top Olympian, two if you count Hadi, in that out of the top 12 or 15, I believe. Again, we'll go over that more in detail as we go.
Samson is also there. And that's one of the things. That's one of the things. Hadi now, obviously, on paper, because he is a Mr. Olympia, and he's runner-up at the Mr. Olympia, he is on paper the highest ranking competitor at the Arnold, but right behind him is Simpson Dauda, right?
Sure.
So he's going to have to defend against the current Arnold champion, Simpson Dauda, and in the meantime, Derek Lunsford just looking and watching these guys battle it out.
Well, at this point, I certainly can't fault Derek Lunsford. He's the champ. He's the new Olympia champion. I wouldn't expect him to be in the Olympia. Last year, as we voiced our opinions on the same matter, I did think it was a mistake for him not to go in. Whether that was played out, we don't know or not, because he may have won. If he won the Arnold or didn't win the Arnold, he may have gone on to still win the Olympia. But the bottom line is these guys need to get out there. I have to applaud Simpson Dauda, because he hasn't taken a day off since the Olympia. He went out, he competed a few more times, and now he has thrown his hat in the ring for the Arnold. And he's going to be, if Hadi ends up in the show, then clearly you've got your top two, at least on paper. But that said, Samson is the reigning champ, and it'll be his to win or lose.
And joining us directly from an expensive breakfast at the Wynn Hotel, he is Arnold Classic champion, Ironman champion, 1987 national champion, Sean Ray. Sean,
good morning.
Welcome to Olympia Live. Thank you so much for joining us. We can clearly see you're quite wealthy. You're having breakfast at the Wynn Hotel, which
yes,
with inflation right now for two people is approximately $180 a person. Sean, talking about money, Hadi Choopan is on the list for the Arnold Classic. He is runner-up for the Mr. Olympia. Now,
yes.
Do you believe that doing the Arnold Classic is an advantage for him going into the Olympia, or it might take away from his direction going into the Mr. Olympia?
I'm going to hold my phone because it's slipping. There's no question. Hadi's redemption lies in an Arnold Classic victory. We already know that he's not afraid of competing. We have yet to see him compete twice in one calendar year, so that's a pretty big challenge. The best motivation a bodybuilder can have is revenge. He's motivated. He's got the reason. This is not about money for Hadi Choopan. This is about motivation. It's about setting himself up to try to recapture what he lost. I never had the chance to win the Olympia, but I can only imagine what it must feel like to not only win it, but to have the validation to defend it. I remember Jay Cutler when he made the comeback after I think he got beat by Dexter Jackson in 2008, and he almost got beat by Victor Martinez in 2007. But when he lost to Dexter Jackson, it did something to him. You know, he had already won the Olympia twice. He'd been walking around the world as the best built man on the planet. To have that taken away from you, it incentivizes your training. It changes your thought process for life. And, this could be the wake-up call that he needs. And if he beats Samson Guada, who he's already beaten, I feel like he'll be walking around like a peacock. It keeps him close to the fight because he's got to stay in shape in the off season. He went right back in the gym. I remember Tom Platz when he said one year, I think it was like 81, the next day after the Olympia, he was right back in the gym to start the process all over again. And to hear that kind of motivation from somebody like Tom Platz, who's not genetically gifted as Hadi, I can only imagine that Olympia title means something. And so to lose it, he's in the gym right now. He's using the entire year to get it back, and having the Arnold Classic as a goal, a platform where he can redeem himself and beat Samson, who's touted as for me, I think he's number 20. I think Samson's Mr. Olympia number 20, and Hadi's got to shut that down. He's got to silence his critics. He's got to put Samson back in his place. It's a big challenge for Samson. It's going to be a little bit easier for Hadi because Hadi, I don't think, has volume that Samson's going to have to deal with. There was really no criticism on Hadi. We know that Samson was not his 100%. I think that we saw the best of Hadi in the Olympia the first week of November. He's got vengeance on his mind. He's a dangerous bodybuilder. This is a smart choice for Hadi. It's great for the fans. Derek is the one that gets to sit back and lick his chops and watch these two do the rubber match because he'll have an extended off season, but he'll also have the advantage of watching these guys, get motivated by these guys, and tee up the 60-year anniversary of the Olympia here in Las Vegas in October. Smart move by Hadi to go on the show.
I'm excited to see, and obviously we're going to possibly mention some of the other competitors on the list. I'm excited to see Hadi versus Samson Dauda, but I also agree with you, Sean. You know, Derek Lunsford is sitting there saying, guys, go to war, get another prep in, and I'm just going to wait to be the last guy to do my walk on stage at the Mr. Olympia, rested and ready to go. And last year, a lot of us were critical that Derek Lunsford did not compete at the Arnold, including myself. But he said, guys, my focus is on the Mr. Olympia, and I'm going to do everything I can to win the Mr. Olympia. It worked well for him, right?
Well, not only did it work well for him, but Hadi's the benefactor of being Mr. Olympia too. It worked well for Hadi. Hadi wouldn't have looked the way he did and get that first runner-up had he not sat out the Arnold Classic. This is a big test for Hadi. I think it's a little easier road for him than it will be for Samson. Samson's going to take a lot more discipline. You know, he went on and did 2 shows following this year's Mr. Olympia. He came into some newfound wealth, and he's setting himself up nicely. The question is going to be whether or not Samson can correct the mistakes he made last year, which is just a conditioning one. It's not that big of a mistake. This is going to be a test for him to stay in shape. Derek will be sitting on the sidelines, but listen, that standout trophy this year is slipperier than any other year because you got 3 guys capable of winning it. I think if Samson pulls off the Arnold Classic in Ohio, he will go on to win the one over at the UK only a week or 2 later. And then it's a long road to the Mr. Olympia, and Samson's not a shoe-in. He's no Dexter Jackson. We know he's not a Vince Taylor. He's not a guy that's going to peak multiple times, but he's going to have to prove us all wrong. And if he wins, then we know that he's exactly who we thought he was. Samson's the real deal. Derek, on the other hand, he's got the weight of the crown on his head. He's gonna be paraded all over the United States, making appearances, and it's a lot of responsibility, I imagine, for young Mr. Olympia like Derek, especially when you're dealing with a 6 foot, 300-pound beast coming down the pipe in the form of Samson. I personally prefer Samson over both Derek and Hadi. Now it's going to be a question of whether or not Hadi can bring the hardness and the separation to keep Samson at bay. This is a two-man show in Ohio this coming October or March.
Bob, if Samson surpasses Hadi at the Arnold, does that put a definite separation between Samson, Dauda, Derek against Hadi? Because Big Ramy went on to do the Arnold after the Olympia. He took 5th at the Olympia, and then he went on to do the Arnold, and he took 4th. And after that, he said, "Okay, I'm gonna stop right now and bring a new strategy to the game." Is losing to Samson Dauda a possible distance maker between him, Hadi Choopan, and the other two guys?
No, absolutely not. These guys are all so close. They're all beatable. Even Derek at this point, as good as he was, Hadi could have beaten him easily, and it could have gone, arguably, it could have gone his way. You could have made a case. Samson's the same. I'm with Sean in that Samson still has the best physique out of all three of them overall. But I'm going to give Samson the same advices that I gave him last year. If you want to be Mr. Olympia, don't be 320 pounds in the offseason. The smartest play that Samson's made thus far is he's kept himself in reasonable condition. Obviously, it's not going to last forever, but I firmly believe if he keeps himself in check, and by check, I mean he doesn't have to be 315, 20, 25 pounds, because he can't get his body down to where it needs to be conditioned enough to beat either one of those guys. So all we would see is history repeating itself. And listen, every once in a while, somebody will come out with something you don't expect, like the Raiders being up 42-0 at the half. I mean, these aren't things that are able to be counted on by any stretch, Sean. But these guys are going to battle it out. And this is assuming that Hadi can be here in America. There's always visa issues. If you guys notice, it says pending next to 3 guys, most notably Andrew Jack, Hadi Choopan, and the new guy, Rubio, Nexzilla. All 3 have to be able to get into the States. Again, these aren't things in our control or even in their control. But all that would mean, Tarek and Sean, is that on that day, hypothetically, that Samson was better than Hadi, and then they get to fight again, and we all get a great show at the Olympia with those 3 top guys. But I tell you what, as I'm looking down this list, guys, like I said earlier at the onset before Sean got on, this list is as much about who's in the show as who isn't in the show, because the one name that I see that's not on the list is Nick Walker.
Yeah. Well, Nick Walker clearly is coming off of a major injury. He looked presentable in the guest posing he did in Vegas, which shows he's on the road to recovery, but he was by himself. And clearly that was not the Olympic caliber that we would expect of him in a guest posing appearance. But Nick Walker's smart not to rush back from injury. That hamstring is a very, very delicate tie-in to the glute. And you re-injure it and your career is over. So he's smart. I wouldn't jump back in that show limping into a contest, because then it would just be basically for the prize money. And if you're competing for money, it's the wrong motivation. You got to compete for the history and the title.
You know, Sean, let me say this, because I don't think it was smart, and I'll tell you why. If Nick Walker was trying to make a case for a special invite, which he has been on record as saying he certainly wouldn't turn it down, right? Yeah. Now, everybody knows I'm not in favor of a special invite. I've been very vocal with that. But I thought it was a tactical mistake. He went out there. Listen, he looked great. I know it was a guest posing, but he was in shape. He looked great, moved fine. You didn't see any obvious black and blue with the leg. That means he can compete. And if you can compete, you need to get out there and compete.
No, that doesn't mean you can compete, because, listen, practice, right? We're talking about practice. A guest posing is practice. He was compared to no one. He had nothing to lose. He wasn't there was no Hadi Choopan barking up him.
Yeah, but he looked great.
Yeah, but he stood by himself. I look great by myself.
No, but Sean,
let's not get crazy now.
Yeah, but you're talking about a competition, Bob. There was nothing to compare him with. You put him up against the world's best, and it's a different Nick Walker.
Sean, I agree with you, but his point is that him doing the guest posing now took away from his chance of
Correct.
getting a special invitation, because now people saw that he's actually almost, not recovered, but he
Correct.
looked pretty good. He looked.
Let me back up. Sorry, Tarek. I think that special invitations should be off the table. You're going to get a special invitation because you got hurt. This is professional bodybuilding, okay? If you get hurt and it's an accident, it's nobody's fault. But you know what? That can happen to any of these guys. You don't get a free pass for the year coming up when all these guys are busting their hump. There's not one logical explanation that Nick Walker gets a free pass a year after he's been injured. You got to earn your way to that Olympia. You got to go do the Tampa Pro, the New York Pro, whatever freaking contest it is. But you don't get a free pass to come back for a chance to win $400,000 because you accidentally got hurt. I mean, because now we're talking about, it could be a car accident, it could be getting arrested, it could be getting sick. You don't make those excuses to give a world-class athlete a free pass to come to the biggest dance in bodybuilding. I'm 100% against that. If that happens, you're going to hear from me. I'm not for no free pass because you got injured. Hell no.
Well, I had a chance I was actually head judging the event in Vegas. And when he came on stage, man, he looked impressive. I almost have the feeling that after he got hurt, he might have made a mistake trying to fix it, and it got worse. Based on what I saw, if he had the injury and he didn't do anything, he actually could have competed. But I think he tried to fix it. He did some work on it, and the blood just spread all over, and it looked awful. But what I saw in front of me in Las Vegas when Nick Walker came to guest post was not only a good bodybuilder, it was a great bodybuilder. And man, if we talked about Hadi not being 100% from the back, Derek not being 100% from the front, I think in some poses, Nick Walker would have exposed them.
Well, Nick Walker is clearly the X factor, but it's a long way to October 12th, 2024. And watching a guy in guest posing condition standing next to a bunch of amateurs that are a million miles away from not only a pro card, but from the Olympia stage, it's not a true fair comparison. Nick Walker looked phenomenal in the guest posing, a month after his leg injury. But now you've got to train that leg, and that injury that happened can reoccur. The one person that really made the true comeback from a career-ending injury that nobody talks about is Kevin Levrone. He's the only one with a pec tear that he actually was able to recover and go on to get second place in Olympia 3 additional times after his first time in 1992. Dorian was never the same when he tore his biceps and his triceps and his quad. Gaspari was never the same after his pec tear. The pec tear on Barry DeMay ended his career. Some of these injuries are career enders. Nick Walker is still young enough, but his training style may be his undoing. Ronnie Coleman's training style, Dorian Yates' training style became their undoing. If Nick doesn't train the way he does, he's no longer Nick Walker. We don't want to see Nick Walker up there with skinny basketball legs and a top-heavy physique. He can get beat by a lot of people, but he's going to have to change his training style, which is definitely going to have an effect on his appearance that we used to know. So he needs to earn his way back to that Olympia stage. If you get a free invite because you get injured, it's going to open Pandora's box for all kinds of bodybuilders down the road for that. We already limited it to the top 3. Stick to the top 3 in the Olympic qualifying. Everyone else, you got to earn your way back. Injury, accident, sickness is not a free pass to come to the Olympia. It does nothing for the value of that show.
Now, here's my question to both of you. It looks like, based on your opinions, this is a two-man show between Hadi and Samson Dauda. Now, if one of them wins the show, Hadi or Samson, and then Samson goes to the Arnold in the UK, obviously he would be considered the favorite. All of a sudden, Bob, Sean, we have not that many shows for a lot of guys to get a qualification, correct? It looks like Samson.
Let me start with that one. It is kind of a sort of a two-man race. Now, again, we're going to just go on the assumption that Hadi is in the show. You've got some new blood in here. I would certainly not count out Andrew Jack, who continues to make great strides, and he's bigger than all those guys out there, but he's got to get himself in conditioning. The new guy, Rubio Mascara, I tell you what, man, this kid's got some muscle. He's been compared to a lot of people. We've heard the next Ronnie Coleman, these type of things. I'm not so sure I go that far just yet, but
hell.
But Sean, here's the thing I got, right? There's some names on here taking a pass that I'm trying to wrap my head around. Again, everybody has their rationale. Maybe you got family things, business, health, it's whatever, right? No Brandon Curry, no Hunter Labrada, no Krizo, no Nick, we just talked about, no Regan. Where's Carlos Thomas? Like, wouldn't this have been a great show for a Carlos Thomas to have made an appearance and been himself in the mix? I mean, these are some of your top bodybuilders in the world, and none of them, now again, whether they applied and didn't get picked, which I would highly doubt. I think any of those guys would have been in the mix for an invite. Hard to believe that they wouldn't have gotten picked, but this just opens up the door as I'm looking down this lineup. James Hollingshead, the return of Akeem Williams, Antoine, your boy Rafael Tarek from Brazil. You can cue the. Do they send dinosaurs for Rafael, or is he a different animal?
He's a different animal.
Okay. Speaking of animals, you got a guy named Horse in the show. So it's like a barn stable out here with these guys, Sean.
Yeah, it's not what it once was in terms of the athlete motivation. Arnold's increased the prize money. It shows a very prestigious title. But, we're living in a day and age where I think these athletes are looking at who's competing, and then they're deciding whether or not they want to compete. And we also cannot discount the role of these coaches that are directing these athletes and helping them in their decision-making and what shows they should do, what shows they should stay away from. And it's doing a disservice to the sport of bodybuilding. When these promoters throw up this kind of prize money and the athletes are not responsive to it, it's going to be hard pressed to keep that prize money there, because this is the second year that the Arnold has elevated itself to a very high standard. I mean, it's always been right there with the Olympia. For these guys to sit on the couch and stay home, you got to wonder how long Arnold's going to throw that kind of money around to give them incentives to participate. So we're living in a different day and age where there's other external factors determining why not these athletes are not competing. They see the name Hadi Chupin, they see the name Samson Duwata, then they pivot and they start thinking maybe smaller New York, Tampa, Texas, and that's not how we came up, Bob. I mean, we competed no matter who was in the show because we just wanted to be there amongst the best in the world. And there's no shame in losing to the best in the world, but you got to consider the production value, the historical value, the lessons that you learn early in the year. These guys competing in March, they can still compete in the summer and have a second bite at the apple. But now you get these guys that they're coming off the Olympia in November, the holidays, take precedence. They want to clean out their bodies, and they're just taking longer and make it. I'm not happy with the present state of bodybuilding. And I got to tell you, man, that's another reason why I'm becoming a bigger fan of classic physique, because these guys, they see the opportunity to compete, they jump at it.
Well, talking about classic physique, we can come back to bodybuilding, but talk about classic physique. Ramon Dino is on the list. He won last year, and he looks to be, one of the favorites, if not the favorite to repeat. And then you have, Terrence Ruffin said, I'm not doing it, even though I'm on the list. But Urs Kalaczynski is there, and you have quite a few guys. In the case of Ramon Dino, who already won the Arnold last year, who's getting closer to Chris Bumstead, does that benefit him to get possibly one more title as an Arnold champion and go to the Olympia? Or would you have suggested to him, hey, now you're getting close to the Olympia, rest your body and go for it?
I say Ramon Dino is Kai Green to Phil Heath. Okay, it's the same type of thing. He's probably not going to beat him anytime soon at Bumstead, but he can keep winning Arnold titles, which is exactly what Kai Green did for many, many years. There's no shame in that. I mean, it's the Arnold Classic. It's a nice paycheck. You saw how he looked last year. He'll continue to be a top contender, but the other guys are creeping up on him, and there's some good bodybuilders out there in this classic physique division. Michael DeBoule continues to impress. He just won a show. Urs Kalaczynski, again, young guy, is making the strides. He's done very well for himself, and you've got some new guys who are coming around that I think have established themselves as well. So, yeah, I think it's smart for Ramon to get out there, go after that title. Hopefully he can retain that, because he's got the most to lose, that he's been the runner-up for the past few years. So if Ramon can keep a handle on that Arnold title, he keeps establishing himself as the #1 contender. And good luck trying to beat Bumstead, because at this point he's just so dominant in this field. As good as Dino is, there's still a big difference between those guys.
Well, he is the Jay Cutler to Ronnie Coleman. 2001,
right.
Jay Cutler gets second place to Ronnie Coleman, realizes that maybe Ronnie's going to have that title for a while, so he goes on and he wins 3 Arnold Classics. It's still the business of bodybuilding. Raymondino needs to go and be that multiple Arnold Classic champion, stay relevant, stay in the fight, chase Chris Bumstead down. Listen, there's a higher probability that Bumstead doesn't wind up on stage at the Olympia with all the things going on in his life, whereas Raymondino gets this Arnold Classic title and he just chases Bumstead into retirement. You know, the more Bumstead has won, the more things have come up that are going to slowly start to become a distraction. I think he's going to be an expected father. I think there's some injuries he's dealing with. I think there's business he's dealing with. Raymondino, keep your nose to the grindstone. Go get another Arnold Classic title. Show up at that Olympia. You know what? You can't win unless you play. So he's got to be there. And Bumstead is the X factor. I think,
Sean,
there's a 50-50 chance Bumstead doesn't even show up, Bob. And
Sean, I got a question for you, my friend. So are you going to be booking a trip to Turkey anytime soon to follow in Chris Bumstead's footsteps of that new shock of Harry? Bro, you can get the fade back, man.
I'm a little bit older than Chris. I could be his dad at my age, but I said he's going out on a limb and he's getting he's actually maybe starting a new trend and a new business with those guys. There's all kind of stuff going on, you know, with the hair and the teeth and the BBLs. I mean, it's amazing what I'm here in Vegas for that anti-aging clinic that Dr. Bob Goldman hosts. And there's all kind of new technology, this whole stem cell stuff coming out. These athletes have a lot of opportunities to fight the hands of time. And I think, again, this is another distraction for Bumstead, where Raymondino's training for the Arnold Classic. Bumstead's looking at his cosmetics. It's a different mindset, bro. I mean, Raymondino is focused on winning another show, and Bumstead's over here healing up and working on cosmetics and business.
Well, he'll be all right. Let's just hope he doesn't get a Brazilian butt lift.
Gentlemen, I want to go back to bodybuilding. Bob Ciccarillo,
yes, sir.
You said this is a two-man show. With that being said, who wins the Arnold Classic, Hadi Choopan or Simpson Dauda?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? This is a huge opportunity for either one of these guys. They both lost to Derek Lunsford, so neither one of them won the Olympia title. That said, there's a golden opportunity for Sampson to get that one up. If he can beat Hadi Choopan at the Arnold, then he will establish himself, as I thought he was a number one front runner last year. He would establish himself clearly as the guy to try to beat Derek Lunsford. On the other hand, if Hadi Choopan can bring his best there, and he's very consistent, then he reestablishes himself and he keeps Sampson at bay. All that said, and I still firmly believe this, the cards are clearly in Sampson's hands. He controls his own destiny. He's taller, he's bigger, he's more muscular, he's got the better shape, symmetry, and proportion. His posing is excellent, if not the best out of the current crop. If he can just put himself in that 95 percentile to bring all those things together with conditioning, he still has the best physique out of all of them.
And so you're based on your response, you're picking Simpson Dauda to beat Hadi Choopan. Sean Ray, who's winning the show? Simpson Dauda.
My mic's not working. For some reason, my mic's not working.
Uh-oh. We've lost Sean, but I'm sure Sean would say the same thing. I mean, he likes Sampson's physique better. He's been on record as saying that many times. Listen, Sampson controls his own destiny. That's the difference between him, Tarek, and the rest of the guys. The rest of the guys are dependent on somebody with a better overall physique coming in off, like Bumstead. Ramon, any of those guys, they all need Bumstead to come off for them to have a shot at winning. He's just put together better.
Right.
Sampson just clearly has a better physique if he can get it together. But remember what I said last year? We're trying to get Sean back on the audio. Remember what I said last year for the Olympia, though? Sampson had to be 5% better for the Olympia to win, and he wasn't. He was 95%. He looked about the same as the Arnold, and unfortunately, it put him in third place. That'll be a repeat, Tarek, as long as he continues to do what he's doing. If he comes in at 95 to 100%, it's lights out for everybody else.
Okay, well, Bob, if you're Derek Lunsford and you're sitting there watching these guys, who do you want to win this show?
I don't think he cares. I really don't. I don't think Derek Lunsford really cares who wins this show because he's beaten both these guys already. So
No
he is
audio.
clearly in the driver's seat of, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to focus on just being the best bodybuilder in the world. Like Sean mentioned earlier, he's got the free pass until next Olympia, which he has earned. So he can do the business of bodybuilding, make money, do appearances, all his business ventures and family ventures, since they've got their first child on the way. But he doesn't have to worry about who wins there. They got to beat him at this point. That's the difference between being the champ and defending the title and being a runner-up and or contender to the title.
Sean Ray, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. The viewers want to hear your prediction. If this is a two-man show, who's winning, Hadi or Simpson?
Well, again, I love Hadi to death, man. But when I look at the completeness of Samson, it's a conditioning thing for me. I think Hadi's like myself, and that's all I can go on. Maxed out, 5'6", 5'7", 200 and some change. Whereas I think if Samson pulls a Ronnie Coleman of 2001 at the Arnold Classic, where Ronnie came off the 2000 Mr. Olympia, streamlined his physique, dieted through the holidays, came in his lightest as an Olympia champion at the Arnold in 2001. He won that 2001 Arnold Classic running away. He looked like an athlete. His stomach was under control. His conditioning was on par. And I think that Samson, if he's able to do what Ronnie did in 2001, Hadi's second place because he just has too many things happening in his physique that on a bigger scale, Hadi can never achieve just because it's a size thing. And I come from the place of the smaller, more conditioned, more proportionate bodybuilder. But Hadi's not the symmetrical athlete that Labrada, myself, or even Muhammad McAway was. Hadi's got chunks and slabs of muscle. He looks great in his front shots. There's no question. His chest gets ripped up in areas that Samson Duadas doesn't. But Samson's billowing, full-flowing muscles and quads and girth and size, if in shape. Like Ronnie Coleman of 2001, even though Hadi beat him this past November, Samson wins that show because Samson's is a dietary thing. Whereas Hadi Chupin, if he puts the same exact physique on stage that he had in November, in March, against a Samson who's leaner and meaner, Samson wins every day, twice on Sunday. And that puts the nail in the coffin for Hadi's run. And that really would fire up the jets for Samson's run to become the 20th Mr. Olympia in October.
Okay, well, interesting call, guys. I never forget when the superstar experts make their picks. And we have here Sean Ray and Bob Chick picking Samson Dauda to surpass Hadi Chupin at the Arnold Classic. Now, guys, I want to mention to all my Brazilian friends that Bob Chicarillo actually picked Ramon Dino to place third at the Olympia and Chris Bumstead to place second. He had Urs Kaliczynski winning the show. So please go to the Voice of Bodybuilding YouTube page, subscribe to his channel, and start destroying him on his comments.
Let me ask you this, Tarek. Let me ask you this, because I don't know what emoji you would use for a guy they call Nextzilla, but Sean, I got to get your take on this. You got the new guy. He's got more muscle than any three of them put together. He obviously his aesthetics aren't the best in the world, but they're not the worst either. But in this lineup, is he the dark horse to I don't want to say win because I wouldn't put him there, but is he the dark horse to place maybe in the top, maybe in the third or fourth spot, or is it the guy they actually call horse?
Yeah, no, he is the modern day Mike Matarazzo, Paul DeMeo freak factor. He's not the future of bodybuilding. There's too many things that are just thrown together, and there's too many distractions in that physique. And the posing, the inexperience of displaying his physique to his best, hiding his weaknesses, which are plenty. He's got slabs of muscle in all the right places, but they don't all go together. And from a guy that comes from the most complete physique wins philosophy, he can get beat by a whole lot of guys on that stage that just happen to show up in shape. Having muscle just for the sake of having muscle, for me, doesn't equate to bodybuilding. There's a lot of things that I'm not really on board with in terms of the distraction of the physique. separation of the pecs, the long.
Look at the size of this guy.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're just talking size,
Sean,
what?
Sean, your best friend, aka the Buffalo Bills of bodybuilding, Chris Cormier, he said that Rubiel Mosquera could very well be the next Ronnie Coleman. You categorically disagree with that statement. You think Chris Cormier is high again.
And you know what? It's tough when you're friends with people, because then you become cheerleaders, and then when you're a coach, you become very non-biased, and you're looking through rose-colored lenses, and you have some skin in the game. That's his boy. I'm not mad at Chris for wanting his boy to win. Look, my mom always thought I should have won the Olympia. I never did. But this guy doesn't have the genetic structure to become the next Arnold Classic or the next Mr. Olympia. It's not a knock on his work ethic. It's not a knock on his muscularity. He's put together all wrong. I mean, Tom Platz, a great personality, made a career out of a physique that would never win the Olympia. People made a case for it, but Tom Platz never had the genetics to be Mr. Olympia. This guy doesn't have the genetics to be the Arnold Classic or the Mr. Olympia. He has a case to make a lot of money. Mike Matarazzo did. Paul DeMeo did. There's a place for physiques like this, but the victory circle on the Arnold and the Olympia are not one.
Sean, I got 3 words for our good buddy Chris Cormier. Puff, puff, give. Puff, puff, give.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is not a very he needs to stay away from any kind of judging. He's a great fan. I'd love to have Chris in my corner when I wake up and I look in the mirror, have Chris in my ear telling me how great I look. That'd be great.
Okay, well, with that being said, looking at the lineup, Bob, you know, you got Andrew Jack there. He's top 5 at the Mr. Olympia. You got the 2 guys we've been talking about it. If the call out is Steve Weinberger calls 6 guys, and you got those 3 guys there, Andrew Jack, you got Hadi and Sampson, who are the other 3 to make that first call out?
This is an interesting call because 3 of those spots are already taken, assuming they're all in the show. Andrew Jack, Sampson, Hadi Chupan, there's your top 3 all day, every day, without question, barring obviously something really unusual. The next 3 is where it gets interesting. And James Howling said we haven't talked a lot about, but he's very underrated when he's in shape, and he looks like he's gotten that down. He took this last year off, so he could be bringing a different package that we haven't seen yet. Akeem Williams has as much muscle as anybody. His problem in the past is getting his back to match his front. If he can be in condition, Akeem Williams can absolutely be in there. And you got to put the new guy in there, Rubio. Nexzilla would absolutely be a guy I would think would get that consideration just because of his sheer mass and freak factor. He's going to be a problem for somebody. The guys that are on the outside looking in and can really upset the apple cart is Rafael Brandao, who, again, we didn't see last year, putting on some more muscle, very aesthetic physique, great young talent. And Antoine Velia out of Canada, who doesn't get a lot of love, but I tell you what, he's one of those guys that will sneak up on you. He's got a lot of muscle. He's bigger than you actually think he is, and he can hang with these guys. So those are the other 2 guys I would consider as being front runners to get to sneak into that, you know, that 4th, 5th, 6th spot is going to be the interesting stuff.
So we're here to lose followers and make enemies, Bob. Give me 3 names that are going to make the first call out.
The 3 names are, like I said, this is the easiest call in the world. If they all show up in reasonably close to 100% condition, you got Sampson, Andrew Jack, and Hadi Chupan. There's your top 3 in some order. And if I had to pick an order right now, I would go with Sampson, Hadi, and Andrew Jack, 1, 2, and 3.
Who are the other
4th? Maybe the new guy 4th. Maybe Nexzilla gets himself up there as a complete freak, but you can't overlook it. At the end of the day, it's still a contest about muscle, right?
So you have Rubiel Mosquera in 4th. Who's coming in 5th and 6th?
5th and 6th, I would say you got John De La Rosa's in the show. I saw that too. So welcome back, John De La Rosa. Again, another guy that you can't discount because traditionally he's come in. But if I have to pick somebody, I'm going to go with Akeem Williams. Moshe Ban and Bobby, also, again, another guy who has shown some good promise. I think he needs a little bit more seasoning. Again, the guy horse, Marcelo DeAngelis, I believe it is.
Yes.
I just have horse written down, but again, I don't think he's been tested enough that we can really give a good indication of where he'll be. But Akeem Williams has established himself, and he's a monster. All that guy needs is he's like another Samson. He's got all the parts. He's not as pretty as Samson, but man, he has got a lot of muscle he brings to the table, Tarek. And if this guy can get into that, once again, what I call that 90% conditioning, that percentile, he's got to be between 95 and 100, because when Akeem turns around is when he loses it. That back holds a little bit more fat, a little bit more water than the front. From the front, he can hang with anybody.
Yeah. Well, looking at the lineup, the first guy here, I put it on the screen, Remco Bose. He won the Arnold Classic Amateur. So I would be hard-pressed to find that he's going to be on the first call-out, but everything could happen. He could be there. But I think Rafael Brandão, he has already been on the first call-out at the Arnold on his first Arnold. So if he added a little bit more size, he'll be interesting. Marcelo De Angelis, a.k.a. Horse MD, he was in Romania. He took second to Samson Dauda and Beruz Tabani. And this guy, Bob, from the front, his front double biceps is very impressive. He has some very impressive poses. I'm still not quite sure about some of his back poses, especially the back double biceps, but he'll be interesting to watch. John De La Rosa, obviously a veteran of the sport. Mohammed Shaban, I've judged Mohammed many times. He won the Toronto Super Show a few years back. James Hollingshead, like you said, underrated because he brings a lot of mass. We got Andrew Jacked. Now, if Andrew Jacked can make a move on anybody in the top two, man, that would be the surprise of the show, correct?
Oh, bro, let me tell you something. This show is made for Andrew Jack. Like, if there's a time to establish yourself, if there's a time to put yourself in contention and on the map, it is right for a guy like Andrew Jack. Now, he came in a little bit heavy at the Olympia. I know he's trying to put on some size. He's tall. He's 6'2", at least, for those who don't know. He's huge. But that comes at an expense when the other guys are standing next to you are a foot shorter than you are, and they carry as much muscle per their frame. So that can be a problem. But guess what? He's been doing the business of bodybuilding, and he has made those strides over the last couple of years since we first saw him. Andrew Jack is bigger, taller, and has beautiful structure for a tall man. He's not really missing much. He needs a little bit of thickness from the side. Of course, like everybody else, his back can use a little bit of thickening, but he's getting there. And I tell you what, I would not discount him. You got to watch the Nigerian the train that's coming here with these guys. And we saw that actually with some of the other guys this year, like Blessing. So I tell you what, these guys are put together. But Andrew Jack, if there's an opportunity, this is it.
Yeah, I call the Nigerian Nightmare Train, led by Samson Dauda, followed by Andrew Jack. Then you got Blessing Awodibo, and then you have Quentin Beastwood. They are all Nigerian blood, and man, these guys are incredible. I mean, it's going to be a very good show, exciting. I'm going to miss some of the guys. You know, we don't have Hunter. It looks like we have, Hadi, we have Andrew and Samson, and then we have a big gap because we don't have Hunter there. We don't have Brandon Curry there. We don't have Rizzo there, right? We're missing some of
you don't have Tonio. You don't have Regan. Again, a guy like a Carlos Thomas type of a guy. But I tell you what, that's fine because you know what? All these guys got to qualify somehow. So we're going to see them at some IFBB Pro League show throughout the season. Some of the guys perhaps we'll see a couple weeks later. Again, for Samson, this could be a gold mine because he could just keep going. If he can win this show and then repeat that business at the Arnold UK, I tell you what, this guy's on a tear at that point, Tarek, and he's going to be hard to beat. I think if he keeps himself in check, like I said earlier, the key to the Olympia for me, same as last year, same advice as Samson if you're watching, don't be 320 pounds if you want to be Mr. Olympia. Keep yourself in check. Keep yourself right around that 300 mark, and you will be at another level of conditioning, and nobody can beat Samson currently right now. If all those guys, we always use the hypothetical, Tarek, if all the guys showed up in 100% condition, who wins the show? Everybody is 100%. Samson Dauda wins the 2024 Mr. Olympia.
Well, another bold prediction by the voice of bodybuilding. It's not enough for him to say that Chris Bumstead would not win the 2003 Classic Physique champion is not enough for him to push out of the top two Ramon Dino. He's making a strong statement that Samson Dauda 100% will be Mr. Olympia in 2024. Somewhere in Florida, Derek Lunsford is not happy about this statement. And we'll bring Derek Lunsford here so he can respond personally to the voice of bodybuilding. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see what happens at the Arnold Classic. Is going to be a great show. We're going to see who qualifies for the Olympia. And like Bob said, if Samson Dauda or Hadi win, but Samson goes on a tear and wins a few more shows because they're so close, Bob, all of a sudden you got Andrew Jack. He needs to win a show. You got Nick Walker. He needs to win a show. Hunter Labrada needs to win a show. Krizo, who thought he was going to win in Prague, took second. He needs to win a show. Rafael Brandão. All these guys are going to be running, and maybe the New York Pro is going to be a huge battle. Do you see that happening?
Absolutely. And as you saw the big announcement from head judge and head Olympia judge Steve Weinberger and the promoter of the New York Pro, they've upped the prize money. They've upped the everything at the New York Pro. This has always been one of the most prestigious shows that we've had on the circuit, so it doesn't surprise me, and it's good to see for the athletes. But kind of like last year and every year that I can think of, Tarek, they all seem to pile into the same shows at the end of the year. I'm not so sure why. There will absolutely be some opportunities for these guys to make it or break it, because like you pointed out, they all have to qualify. I do think, maybe it's a little bit soon for Nick Walker. I don't know the extent of that injury, or maybe he just thought, you know what, maybe I'll just take a little more time. But I don't know if he's a shoo-in for that invite. Again, I don't think there's any provision for it. I know Sean's very much against it. If he gets it, he gets it. I mean, it's good. I can see both ways, right? If I'm the Olympia promoter, of course I want to give him an invite and have him in the Olympia. Fantastic. But there really isn't a precedence for it, and that's where it gets a little hazy in there. It's kind of a slippery slope that opens up to other people going, well, hey, I got injured too. And, well, hey, I wasn't able to compete due to a family problem or whatever. So I hope these guys are out there competing. Good for the fans, good for the sport, and good for them ultimately. But this is a golden opportunity for somebody, be it a Samson, to just keep winning and keep going, be it a Hadi Chupan to reestablish himself, or, like I say, an Andrew Jack or somebody new. Maybe the new guy can make some waves. I tell you what, he may not be the most aesthetically gifted guy, but that Rubio Nexzilla there, this guy's a monster. I mean, if you look at the picture of him that you posted up earlier, now we all know Chris is about 5'10" or so, maybe a little shorter these days. We're all getting older, Tarek. But look at him standing next to Chris. Now, Chris isn't a small dude. Look at that shot. They look like the number 10 if you reverse the photo right there. Look at the size of Rubio there standing next. Chris is not a small person, folks, even though none of us are in our prime anymore. But you can already see the aesthetic difference there between Samson and Rubio, as we were talking about. The best thing he can do is to get a different nickname, because you don't want to be known by anything in particular, because it shows that that's a freak part for you. You don't want to be Armzilla or Neckzilla or even Legzilla or anybody named Zilla, because you want to be a complete package, and that's what's going to beat him on stage.
You know, after he placed third, I did a live with him on Olympia TV. And Bob, as I was doing the live, I could see my neck and Chris Cormier's neck growing during the live. That's how big this guy's neck is.
For those that like the history of bodybuilding, he's very reminiscent of a guy named Victor Richards from years and years ago, who never materialized, but man, very similar in structure, a lot of mass, a lot of muscle, uncrowned Mr. Olympia. We used to hear all these things. The difference is, and I got to give a lot of credit, this guy's actually competing on stage as an IFBB pro, but he's a freak, and bodybuilding fans love freaks. That's why they love Nick. That's why traditionally they like big guys out there with a lot of muscle. The Mike Matarazzo's, God bless him, rest in peace, Mike, and those type of guys that we've seen. Nasser El Sambadi was a freak. Marcus Rule, I mean, everybody remembers the German giant. These guys were fantastic, but there'll always be a place, Tarek, for the freak when it comes to pro bodybuilding.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tarek Elgindi with the Mr. Olympia. with my co-host of Olympia TV, the one and only, the voice of bodybuilding, 2000 Mr. USA's Arnold Classic, Master of Ceremony, Mr. Olympia, Master of Ceremony. We'll see you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen,